Check out arcgear.com for premium quality weightlifting, fitness, and combat sports equipment. Use the promo code HATMAN for a 30% discount off your first purchase. That's arcgear.com, link in the description. Chris Eubank Jr. has responded to Liam Williams calling him out, and he said that he's actually open to the fight. If the fans want it, and if the financial package is to his liking, to his approval, then the fight potentially could happen. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there who don't like Chris Eubank Jr. for whatever reason. That's okay. But you have to be realistic about this Liam Williams fight. Chris Eubank Jr. has fought, I saw some people in the comment section of my previous video about this fight saying Eubank Jr. is a hype job, who's he fought, who's he beat, and so on. Okay, fair enough. But who's Liam Williams fought and beat? I mean, he fought Liam Smith twice and lost. And then since then, what's he done and who's he beat? Nothing. Nobody. Alantez Fox. That's it. Eubank Jr. has beaten much better opponents than Liam Williams has beaten. He's also been fighting at middleweight and also super middleweight, whereas Liam Williams was a light middleweight and only moved up to middleweight fairly recently. And as far as how realistic it is for this fight to happen, well, Liam Williams is the one who's been calling Eubank Jr. out. He needs Eubank Jr. more than Eubank Jr. needs him from a financial perspective. Therefore, this is literally down to what Eubank Jr. wants to give Liam Williams. And if Liam Williams really wants that fight, if he really wants the opportunity to raise his profile by beating a Eubank Jr., then he has to be humble in terms of finances. Okay, not in terms of getting in the ring and fighting Eubank. Of course, don't be humble there. But from a financial perspective, he has to accept that Eubank Jr. is going to take the lion's share. I mean, overwhelmingly the lion's share. This guy's earned millions from fights. Whether you think he deserves it or not, that's the reality. He's fought on pay-per-view a number of times. Okay? So for this fight to actually happen, Eubank Jr. is probably going to take, 90% of the purse? Seriously, that's what you're looking at. Okay? It's going to be something like that. And if Liam Williams is willing to do that, then maybe it can happen. And I don't hate the fight. I actually think the fight is all right. Eubank Jr. has been out the ring for a bit. He's looking to reestablish himself. And having a domestic fight against someone like Liam Williams, I think would be a step in the right direction to try and get some of the British public back on his side, because he's lost a lot of fans. The 2 times when he stepped up to world level against Billy Joe Saunders and George Groves, he came up short, especially against Groves. Against Billy Joe Saunders, to be fair, that was a close fight and it was a competitive fight. But against George Groves, really, he was comprehensively beaten. And so the British public are very skeptical about him. They, a lot of them don't really like the fact that he's still cocky and brash and has a very high opinion of himself when he didn't produce the goods in those 2 step-ups to world level. To be fair, he did fight Avni Yildirim, and Yildirim is probably going to fight Canelo next. That's what the talk is behind the scenes. Yildirim also fought Durrell, and he did much better against Durrell than he did against Eubank Jr. So you might say Yildirim was a world level fight. Certainly not elite level, but world level. Be that as it may, there are a lot of British boxing fans who don't really rate Eubank Jr. If he was to fight Liam Williams and do a job on him, I think that he would redeem himself in the eyes of a lot of British people. So I can see some benefit there for Eubank Jr. if he gets in the ring with Liam Williams and wins. And obviously the benefits are, clear for Liam Williams. It would be a massive boost to his profile. It would be the best win on his resume. And he could probably demand more money if he then goes into an Andrade fight, right? Now, there were several people in the comments section of the previous video I did about this fight telling me that I was underestimating Liam Williams' ability, saying that he's more than just a rough, tough guy who comes forward, that he actually has boxing ability, that he actually has a good jab. Now, they may very well be right. I have not seen all of Liam Williams' fights. I've seen quite a few of them. Saw his fights against Liam Smith. Saw all of his fights at middleweight so far. But I haven't seen, all of his professional fights. Probably haven't even seen the majority of them. So it's possible that he has boxing skills, which I've not seen. I've seen his jab. I've seen him try and be a little bit technical here and there. But for the most part, he goes in and he attacks and it's all seek and destroy stuff. If he does that against Chris Eubank Jr., I think that plays into Eubank Jr.'s hands. And given the fact that Eubank Jr. is a naturally bigger man, and he's fought bigger men than Liam Williams, it's not like Liam Williams is bringing something to the table that Eubank Jr. hasn't seen before. Are we trying to say that Liam Williams is as big and powerful as George Groves? He's not. Are we trying to say that Liam Williams is as slick and elusive as Billy Joe Saunders? He's not. And I'm not saying he necessarily has to be to beat Eubank, but he at least has to be in the same kind of ballpark as those guys in terms of skills, in terms of elusiveness. And I haven't seen that personally from Liam Williams. Maybe I just haven't watched the right fights. From what I have seen of him, coming forward, attacking, a bit of a jab and stuff there, but a naturally smaller man than Eubank. I don't know. To me, it looks like Eubank would, I don't think he would have an easy time necessarily. And Eubank, by the way, in this interview says it would be an execution. It wouldn't even be a fight. But what would you expect him to say? I would strongly favor Eubank to win. Let me just put it that way. I would say maybe 65-35 in Eubank's favor, 70-30 maybe, something like that. I think it's a good fight. I think Williams is strong. I think he hits hard. He's aggressive. He's purposeful. He's got a very strong will. And I think it would make for an entertaining spectacle above all else. Irrespective of the fact that I think Eubank would be quite a strong favorite in my head going into the fight, it would be entertaining. I don't think it would just be a one-sided drubbing where it's just all Eubank and there's nothing Liam Williams can do to really make an impression on him. So we'll see if this has any legs. I think it's up to the boxing public, if you really want to see it, to make your feelings known on social media. Eubank Jr., of course, is always on social media. So, make your feelings known. Tell him that you want to see the Liam Williams fight. And also do the same for Liam Williams and, make it clear to him that you can't be looking at this as just a payday, right? Eubank Jr. is definitely the A-side here. Whether you like him or not, whether you think he deserves his position or not, he's the A-side because he's proven that he can sell a certain amount of pay-per-views, that he can generate a certain amount of interest. Liam Williams hasn't proven it to the level that Eubank Jr. has. So, tell Liam Williams on social media, look, we will support you trying to go for that fight, but you've got to be realistic about what you're expecting from it financially. Because if you're talking about anything even close to 60-40, never mind 50-50, then you're pricing yourself out and you're being totally unrealistic. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Eubank Jr. responded to Liam Williams. Obviously says Liam Williams ain't on his level. Says it would be an absolute mismatch. But if the fans want to see it and the deal is right, then they can make it happen. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly. It's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.